they lead the league in NBA offensive percentage, meaning that they are scoring not only the most points in the league, they are scoring at the highest efficiency rating. I mean, they are a well-oiled machine. They are young, they are scrappy, they are hungry. Hashtag Hamilton again. I love that saying. It's how I describe them. They're not throwing away their shot. I'm just going to keep dropping Hamilton references just because it's fun for me. I'm going to see how many I can work in. The Schuyler sisters. Nah, they don't really work there, but what I've seen from Luka is growth from year 1 to year 2. Technically, the bubble for me is year 3. Luka is a top 7 guy in the league today. Now, there's a lot of room that Luka can definitely grow. He's got to be a more consistent shooter. He definitely, especially when it comes to the three-point line, he's only, I think, a 35% three-point shooter. Free throws are atrocious. If he can get his free throws under wraps now, if he can start being a little bit smarter when he starts taking his three-point shots, I think he'll be just fine there too. But he's a top 7 guy. I was wrong. I think I was right in the moment, but now what he has proven, if we want to technically say that this is year 2, because technically it is, I think it's more year 3 for him, but if we want to say it's year 2, then Luka does deserve to be a top 10 guy in the league today. He's a cold-blooded assassin. He can shoot, he can score, he can get to the paint, he can not make free throws, but he can rebound. His defense is getting better. His trash talk elevates him to another level. He's very Larry Bird-esque. Not saying he's Larry Bird at all or that he's even near Larry Bird right now. Not at all, in my opinion. But Luka Doncic is one bad boy, and I was wrong. He deserves to be in my top 10 if we're going to say that this is year 2. So there you have it. I have officially come out, and like I said, I swallowed my pride. I was wrong. Now, we're actually going to stay in the NBA here for a second, simply because we had something very interesting happen. We know that the draft official order has officially come out. That's what official means, Jacob. But the draft order is here. I want to talk about the top 3 picks because I think these 3 picks are the most interesting and the most interesting teams. So let's go ahead and go over to the NBA draft top 3 picks. At number 1, the Minnesota Timberwolves were able to pull out the NBA lottery's number 1 overall pick this year. The smartest move for the Minnesota Timberwolves is to take guard Anthony Edwards out of Georgia. He's 6'4", he's a big guard, good ball handler. With a more consistent outside shot, he will pair nicely with D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. He really has to dial in on his outside shooting because he's able to drive the ball. He's able to play very good defense. He's able to rebound for a guard. He can do pretty decent in the mid-range, but the outside game is really what's going to open up Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell to play freely in that offensive system down there in Minnesota. So he really needs to be more consistent when it comes to outside shooting. He has the most momentum going into this draft. He was playing at the highest level. When you look at the numbers, he has potential to be a top 5 two-way guard in this league if he can get his footing early, if he can start being a better shooter early in his career and really work on that to start off with. He has all the intangibles of very much so a Klay Thompson, but not as good of a shooter, of course. But Klay Thompson is a very good wing defender. He's consistent. I think Anthony Edwards will be one of those guys if he can stay consistent. I'm not saying he will ever be, don't misconstrue what I'm saying, he will never be Klay Thompson. There's no one ever like a Klay and a Steph. He will never be that good of a shooter. But Klay Thompson in the sense that he can play very good defense. He can be a decent shooter. He reminds me, honestly, of Draymond Green. He is a very good and a more athletic Draymond Green, in my opinion. He's got a better shot than Draymond, but he's a good defender. He's a good ball handler. Of course, not as big as a Draymond, but he can turn into one of those guys, a Klay Thompson, a Draymond Green, someone that can play good defense, but then can be offensive-minded when they need to be. He has that potential. He could be out of this draft if he really steps up and doesn't hit the wall like Markelle Fultz. He could be the best player in this draft. I simply believe in him that much. Timberwolves, you have to stay here. You need D'Angelo Russell to have somebody on the other side of him to really pair nicely with Karl Anthony Towns. Timberwolves, I'm sold on Anthony Edwards here. Take him. The Golden State Warriors were able to pull off the second pick in this draft. Here's what worries me about the Golden State Warriors. I believe they're going to move off this pick and try and pick up another player. And now if that player is not Giannis or a Kawhi Leonard type of guy, stay where you're at. This makes complete sense, this next guy for the Golden State Warriors. It has been proven in their whole, especially what Steve Kerr's trying to build up there, which is a bunch of guards that can interchange, play good defense, but can shoot the lights out. You need a mobile big man, and that's why James Wiseman would be a perfect fit for the Golden State Warriors. He's 7 foot tall out of Memphis. Although Golden State is interested in really trading out of this pick, it makes perfect sense for them to keep Wiseman. Besides Andrew Bogut, they have always lacked a big man that is athletic and can crash to the rim. The reason Kevon Looney had so much success when he was with the Golden State Warriors, the reason Kevon Looney was averaging 12 and 12 at one point in his career, and that's right, for those of you at home going, Kevon Looney, is that a type of Looney Tunes? No, it's not. That's an actual human being player that played very well for the Golden State Warriors in the stretches where they needed him. The reason he was successful is because they had an athletic, he wasn't that big, but an athletic big man that could run the floor, crash the boards, and they would get him to an open spot where he inevitably could knock down jump shots. Wiseman is the same type of guy. Very athletic. He would be an undersized center in this league, but he would be athletic. He would be quick. He would be able to go score when he wants to as well. Wiseman makes complete sense here. He gives them a defensive edge with him and Green now really holding that front line that I think would really set the Golden State Warriors apart in the West. What have we seen from two dynamic guards that can score a whole lot of points, but no one can play defense? The Portland Trail Blazers. The Golden State Warriors are on the verge of becoming the next Portland Trail Blazers, somebody that always has high hopes but can never pull off the big score if they don't solidify a big man now. Wiseman would learn from one of the best defenders in this entire league in Draymond Green. Wiseman would offensively be able to be loose. I know he's going to want to be a loose offensive player. He would offensively have that creativity because of having such dynamic shooters on this team to really be his own guy. He would thrive in this situation. He would thrive under Steve Kerr. He would thrive in this system. I hope Golden State doesn't change out of this because that might be a major mistake for the Golden State Warriors in a few years. And last but not least, of course, the Charlotte Hornets were able to pull out the third pick of the draft. Who else but 6'6" LaMelo Ball has got to go to the Charlotte Hornets? LaMelo is definitely the biggest wild card in this draft. LaMelo could be the best player in this draft. He could be the worst player in this draft. I don't know what we're going to see from him. He's a dynamic passer. He's an incredible ball handler. He's a decent shooter. He's only 165 pounds at that 6'6" frame, so he's going to have to put meat on his bones. But then again, in the famous words of Charles Barkley, when Kevin Durant couldn't lift 155 more than one time, how heavy do you think a damn basketball is? But in all honesty, especially with the loss of Kemba Walker, the Hornets need a jolt of energy and youth at that point guard position. He would fit very nicely as a 6'6" point guard for the Charlotte Hornets. Point guard, shooting guard, he could probably vary either one. But you have Miles Bridges and P.J. Washington, two very young stars, hopefully in the making, as we saw Miles Bridges have an incredible Rising Stars game this past year. We could see a playoff Charlotte Hornets team in the next 5 years. They've got a lot of extremely good young talent. I would keep Devontae Graham and ship Terry Rozier out to the Lakers or to the Knicks for some future draft picks so you can continue to build. Listen, the Lakers are going to need some players coming next year. There's a lot of guys that probably won't return, the Dion Waiters of the world, the J.R. Smiths. Terry Rozier is a very good guard. I wouldn't say great. I wouldn't say that he is top 15, but he's good. He's a good guard. He would fit nicely in with like the Lakers. The Knicks are looking to add some pieces. He could be a good vet for the New York Knicks. But ship off Terry Rozier, get LaMelo Ball here, and let him develop. If LaMelo is as good as everybody's been saying, if LaMelo's play overseas really did shock people as much as it did, he could be the best player in this draft. The interesting thing about this draft is after picks probably 4 or 5, there's not a whole lot of players that I'm very interested in seeing in the NBA. These top 3 players are very much giant wild cards, and they're very much could be top of the league guys if they perform the way they should. So if you're the Charlotte Hornets, you've got to go with LaMelo Ball here. Golden State, I really hope they don't trade out of this pick. I think Weissman makes a very smart move for you all. And finally, Anthony Edwards at number 1 overall. He just makes sense with D'Angelo Russell. Well, there you have it. That is the Locker Room's top 3 NBA draft prospects. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you in my comments, in my DMs, email, contact on the phone, whatever you avenue you want to go through. Let me know what you think. Do you think that these 3 guys are going to be in the order that I said? Do you think there's another guy that can maybe move up and sneak into this 1, 2, 3 spot? Is there somebody else you're excited to see? Do you think these organizations are going to make the right moves? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. All right, well, last thing on our agenda today, we're going to go into the debacle that is Earl Thomas. All right, so as many of you know, Earl Thomas has been released from the Baltimore Ravens earlier this week for an altercation that he had at practice. So basically what happened is he had continually missed practices, continually missed team meetings, and in practices has been continually missing his assignments. So in the video that was shown, Earl Thomas blew his assignment, had a man go wide open into the end zone. Earl Thomas then apparently was addressed by another safety who removed his helmet and started yelling at Thomas. Thomas didn't really appreciate this. Thomas then proceeds to punch that man in the face. So here's what I'm going to say. Kudos to the Baltimore Ravens for kicking him out as soon as you did. There's nothing worse than having a player on your team that breaks the team camaraderie if you have championship aspirations. Many of you know this. I have the Baltimore Ravens winning the Super Bowl this year. I talked about it earlier in my podcast, one of the first few episodes. I talked about the Baltimore Ravens being my top favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. They're just too deep on offense, too deep on defense this year. But what's worse, losing Earl Thomas or keeping Earl Thomas and having to deal with his problems throughout the rest of the year? Keeping him would definitely be worse in my opinion. You can't break, the Ravens have such a good team chemistry now, you can't break that with somebody like an Earl Thomas. Somebody who is there for himself. Somebody who, when he signed with the Baltimore Ravens, begged Marlon Humphreys for number 29. And apparently there were some threats that went along with that as well. So Earl Thomas, good riddance, goodbye, stay out of Baltimore. Don't damage that young core any more than you probably already have. Now, where do I see Earl Thomas ending up in this league? In my opinion, Earl Thomas should end up like Antonio Brown. Goodbye, see ya, you should be suspended. There's been too many problems with Earl Thomas. Now, I know he hasn't done anything to really be suspended by the NFL, but there's been way too many problems that have added up with Earl Thomas for the last few years. Many of you remember him flicking off Pete Carroll in the Dallas game when he got hurt. Many of you remember his several altercations on and off the field, both on Twitter and on the field. Earl Thomas, to me, is Antonio Brown, except safety. Antonio Brown had to hit rock bottom, literally pick himself up from the ground, like one of those cartoons when they land on the ground, they're completely flat. He had to pick himself up from that position in order to even be suspended in the NFL, let alone be able to even be thought about on being on a team this coming year. Players like Antonio Brown and Earl Thomas are given chance after chance after chance after chance because they're so great. And the problem is when you give these prima donnas more chances, they will never learn from their mistakes. Do I think Antonio Brown has finally learned his lesson? I honestly do. He was given chance after chance, team after team, between the Patriots, between the Raiders, the Steelers. He was given chance after chance after chance to continually fix himself up, get his act together, start acting like a professional, start acting like a top 7 wide receiver in the league like you are, until he hit so far rock bottom that he is now suspended. So any team that picks him up, he still has a 6-game suspension tacked onto him. So he comes with a price. He is now going to be playing for minimum dollars to even be on a team this year. He has no choice. Why? Because his lifestyle is too extravagant, and now he has no dollar signs coming in because of his actions. Earl Thomas should end up the exact same way. Somebody that should be out of the league. Somebody that should be begging teams to give him another chance. Somebody that should be having to play on a 1-year deal for minimum dollars simply because his actions have never matched that of being a true champion teammate, a true champion leader, a true champion player. There's been talks that the Dallas Cowboys have thought about playing with this